Welcome to Badger Beer Hour for March 2024. We've got a great show for you all tonight. We've got an interview with Wisconsin Brewers Guild president and Brewing Projekt boss right here in Eau Claire, actually. Will Glass. We'll check in with Joel and his travels to Burlington. We'll have a beer spotlight and so much more. But first, it's Chris with the news. Chris.
Hey, Landon.
So good to see you, man.
Happy March, buddy. How are things?
You know, living.
Yeah, good.
Still walking. That's good.
I mean, that's yeah.
Hey,
we got a metric ton of news going on here this month.
A metric ton.
It's actually a metric shit ton, but I can't say that on the stream. Greg won't let me.
Yeah. Well, you can say it out loud, but that's fine.
Oh God, I just said it.
You did.
Oof.
Wow.
Okay.
So much for professionalism. So, we got some news about Carbon 4.
Yeah. So this is a big one that broke right after last month's show. So you may have heard about this one already. On February 26th, Carbon 4 filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So what that means is this is the reorganization type of bankruptcy. This is not going away bankruptcy. And very similar to what we talked about last month with Fair State, our friend of Wisconsin Beer across the state line in Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, you hate to see this, but some of similar things, that they said the business just hasn't recovered from the pandemic. They've been trying. We talked with Ryan a couple times on the show here over the last few years. They've been trying a lot of different things, and it seems like if it was working really well, they wouldn't keep trying different things. So, but they posted a note to their socials, short kind of after the dust settled a little bit. It said, "We aren't going anywhere!" ! We are eternally grateful for the support you've shown us. Shown our business over the past decade plus, and we ask that you continue to provide us with an unbreakable foundation as we navigate through this restructuring. We plan to emerge on the other side stronger than ever, which is nice. And I mean, this is a going concern. Same deal with Fair State. Operations are continuing, and I kind of thought that was it. I'd seen I'd kind of been following this in the court documents and stuff, and then this week, I saw a new filing, and this is kind of, I don't know, breaking news, I guess.
Yeah.
So we know that last fall, Carbon 4 co-founder Alex Evans, who hasn't really been involved in the business since 2020, he sued. Actually, technically, the company sued the other two co-founders, Ryan and Zach Koga, over the brewery's over their acquisition of the Ale Asylum brand. So remember, we talked about this last year. Ryan came on and talked at length about this kind of unusual arrangement where Ryan purchased the brand, the Ale Asylum brand, meaning the recipes, all the IP, the labels, everything. And we're contract brewing that brand with their brewery, which we had some questions about that for Ryan, and actually in the court filing of that lawsuit filed last November by Alex Evans and the company technically. They cited our interview. Badger Beer Hour cited in these court documents. Just saying.
Yeah,
okay.
I saw that.
So this is not a smooth thing. It's not harmony in this company necessarily.
Right.
So they filed Chapter 11 on February 26th. Last week, Alex filed a document to stop the bankruptcy. He's alleging that that he was not consulted in the company's Chapter 11 filing, and he's alleging that Zach and Ryan. He's basically kind of restating his tort in the lawsuit that Zach and Ryan are breaching their fiduciary duties to the company by using. Alex is alleging that they're misappropriating company funds to purchase for their own gain, while also having some benefit to the company as well. So, it's been a messy. This is messy for Carbon 4, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's been a messy few years. Not been with the company, but he still owns, I believe it sounds like it's a controlling interest. It's like a 50-50 split, but he apparently, Alex has the what do you call it? Controlling interest, I guess.
Yep.
How do we kind of read this as Wisconsin beer people? I mean, I think what we said last month about Fair State applies here. If you value something, in this case a brewery, but it might be a restaurant or a concert venue, whatever. We've talked about this a lot over the past since shit started hitting the fan.
Right.
Started hitting the fan. You got to support it. You got to buy something if you care about it. And I hope, I'm hoping that this isn't the sign of more to come, but you're seeing two pretty significant breweries in the Midwest in trouble.
Yeah.
So
yep.
You don't love to see it. And I wrote a piece about Fair State that they seem to be doing everything right. They've got a super diverse portfolio with all the THC stuff they can do in Minnesota,
right?
Not so much here, and hop waters and NA stuff. They've got, I think they have NA stuff. That might be an overstatement, but sours, funky beers. They've got kind of super contemporary modern styles, hazies and pastries, and they've got great dad beers. It's like if I were gonna build a blueprint for how you can probably succeed as a brewery in 2024, Fair State is pretty close to it. And obviously Carbon 4 has been doing a lot of things to kind of try to stay relevant and on top of things as well. The Ale Asylum thing being, I think, an interesting play that I don't know. I mean, it's not exactly the brewery as we know, but I don't know what to say. I mean, I think it's tough, and we'll talk with Will about this a little bit too, about like what does he make of the industry going forward. But it's been a tough go seeing two pretty major breweries. It's they're not going away, but certainly seeking relief and help in just a few weeks. That's tough to see.
That's real tough. And we've said that since the beginning of, at least this show, and I've said it personally since the beginning of the pandemic. Like you said, if you love a beer, you love a place, you got to support it, because without that,
do not set it free. That's not the song.
Just not going to survive.
Bring it in. That's the way.
Yep, that's the way. Well, that's depressing. Why'd you bring that up?
Because it's this is the news segment.
Oh, this is the news.
This is not the feel good segment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But we can feel good. You want to feel a little bit better? We can talk about this next one.
Yeah, March Madness season. We're all into that, right? We got any stories that can capitalize on college sports hype?
Yeah, we got one. Yeah, we got one.
Yeah.
We got
right.
So this is an interesting one. Potosi Brewing, which is like way southwestern corner of the state. Mm-hmm. Really cool brewery visit if you haven't been. Is introducing a beer this spring that's kind of billed as like a runway to hooking up Wisconsin Badgers athletes with name, image, and likeness deals. The NIL stuff. This is the new era of college sports where you can You can, market your image and likeness on products and whatever.
Yep.
This is not exactly that. This is the hook here is that the brewery is partnering with the Varsity Collective, which is an organization that was founded 2 years ago to help Badger athletes kind of pursue these NIL opportunities. Potosi is a nonprofit brewery that is hold on. I'm being corrected in the chat. Alex does not own a controlling interest. In the documents, it says 50% of ownership of between Alex and Zach, or between Alex, I think somebody else with the same last name was in the incorporation documents. So I assume it's a family member or something. But he has 50% now, and Zach and Ryan have 50% or something like that. So it's yeah, I think that might be part of the issue. Anyway, back to Potosi. I needed to correct the record there because that's messy. So Potosi is a nonprofit. So they the money that the brewery makes goes into the Potosi Foundation, which does grants to all kinds of nonprofits, a lot of things in the community there. And I think this is basically one, it kind of enables them to do interesting partnerships like this. So they're going to be donating 20% of the proceeds from this beer to the Varsity Collective, which is that NIL kind of runway for Badger athletes. So, and the beer itself is called Varsity Golden Ale. I don't know, Greg, did I send you images for this? Can you put it up there? It's debuting in mid-April on draft, and it'll be about a month later in cans. And it's got like kind of a Badger-ish. It's not a UW. It's not quite the UW Bucky Badger, but it, red, white, and black, similar imagery. And then the beer is called Varsity. It's Varsity Golden Ale. So it's a new year rounder. It's like a 4% ABV crusher that Potosi tells me was developed. They did a lot of trials with this at the tap room and kind of dialed it in. So I don't know. That sounds like a pretty interesting proposition for Badger fans that want to crush a nice light summer beer and support the Badger athletes.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll drink up on that. You're big Badger supporter, right? Yeah,
I'm a Midland Badger supporter. I'm an alum.
Okay.
Yeah, it's you move to Milwaukee and you kind of the oxygen. It's so much different. The environment of fandom between Madison and Milwaukee.
Marquette now?
No, come on, I'm not that hard up. Jeez. Good luck to Marquette. Good luck to Marquette in the tournament, but
right.
Yeah, no, There's too many Marquette grads here.
All right,
Cubs fans.
That's enough sports talk, probably. For most of our viewers. Anyway, Chris, you remember when Mobcraft was going to open all those breweries, right?
I do. That was a story.
Whatever happened to that?
It was a while back.
Yeah.
Well, after more than 2 years in the works, Landon, Mobcraft in Milwaukee, Madison transplant, not unlike the Beer Baron here, has dropped its plans for a brew pub in Waterford. That location in Western Racine, Waterford is in Western Racine County, so that was going to be one of 3 new brew pubs that they announced last September. The location in downtown Woodstock, Illinois, in kind of the town square there, opened last November, so that one's going. And the other one was a brewery in Denver, Colorado. It's pretty far away from Mobcraft.
Yep.
That one actually closed already. That closed last April, 7 months into its existence. So there was some problems with the lease, and I think Denver's obviously, we knew that was a pretty competitive market, but so that one's gone already. And then here in Waterford, Mobcraft had proposed to develop a brewery in like an old fire station right on the banks of the Fox River. That's not the Fox River that goes north. This is the Fox River that goes south into Illinois. Yes. Don't get that confused. This is the one that goes through Waukesha. But last month, this is back in January, the village issued a notice of default. So that one is kaput. And then just last week, Mobcraft said, "Yep, we're not moving forward with that." So
Bummer, dude.
Yep, it sucks.
Well, we're not going to end on depressing news. We can't. I think we should always end on something good.
Something good, yeah.
So do you have something good?
We got all kinds of openings, and actually,
Good.
we got stuff coming in. We don't not only have new breweries, we got new co-hosts to handle this stuff.
Yeah.
I get help. So
help.
Joel, come on in and tell us about all the taproom openings that are happening in the last month. Where's Joel? Is he on?
Hey.
There he is.
Yes, there he is.
Hey. Yeah. So I know we kind of did a little preview of this brewery report last month, kind of discussing the numbers, how we got to those numbers, what those numbers meant. And so now this is going to be a kind of monthly check-in where we kind of see what has closed, what has opened, and where that kind of puts us on a statewide basis. And so we had 3 openings this past month. First was we had Minocqua Brewing Company. Many people know it based up in Minocqua.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. Many people are aware of them based on their kind of their political names and kind of their whole vibes with that. But they just opened a secondary location in Madison on the east side. It's actually right next door to Trixie's Liquor on East Washington. And it's inside what was formerly the Growlers to Go there. So that is going to be kind of their little, calling it an auxiliary tap room when it's all the way across the state is kind of, a stretch, but it's certainly in a different part of the state that I guess they're going to be hoping to explore more. The next one is 608 Brewing Company in Holmen, Wisconsin. If you're not familiar, 608 is based in La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is actually, it's about a 12-mile drive, about 17-ish minutes. I looked it up. It's part of the Holmen Plaza there. They're going to have a small kitchen. It's actually 2 levels. And the upper level is going to be like a little like kind of more lounge area that is going to be for overflow. And also it can be like rented out for events like that, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't actually know this. I was reading up on it that Phil and Lori Humphrey, the owners of 608, live in Holmen. So this was kind of their whole, there's nothing in Holmen. And really, once you leave La Crosse, if you're going in really any direction, but especially if you're going north, there's the one brewery like in Onalaska, which is essentially La Crosse. And then there's really nothing if you go further north of that. So I do think this is kind of a good move for them to kind of, try to expand their brand to a space that probably does not have anything similar to this. And then the third and final opening was one that we discussed last month on the live stream, was Venture Brewing Company opening up in the old Baloba Brewing facility in Brookfield. And this is also their secondary location. So if you want to hear more about that, I know we talked a lot about that last month, so you can go find the show notes from that. But essentially, we had 3 openings, but none of them were true new breweries. They were all established breweries that were opening up second locations. Although in this case, all of them were opening up their second locations. It's not a situation where we've had some, like a Good City here in Milwaukee that's opened up several locations. This is each of these 3 breweries' first attempt at expansion. Next up, we always have to, of course, also then talk about the breweries that have closed. Parcheesi Brew Pub in Madison, Wisconsin, shut down. And then Valkyrie Brew Pub up in Dallas, Wisconsin, shut down. And so we have, obviously, that means for our numbers when we're looking at our county maps, the fact that Dane County loses one, but then brings one in. We have, Milwaukee or Waukesha County, not Milwaukee County, Waukesha County gaining one. And then Dallas, Wisconsin, for those not familiar with the county layout of Wisconsin, that would mean that Barron County is losing one of their breweries. And so that kind of puts us here. These are the current numbers that we're sitting at in total, where we're sitting at the 224 breweries with the 34 additional tap rooms and locations and 14 other, which, could be like a City Brewing in La Crosse. It can be like the pilot project situation here in Milwaukee. There's several different kind of things that fall into that. Again, I know I kind of explained more of that and more of the examples of that when we talked about kind of introducing this segment last month, but that kind of gives you an idea of where we are at. And here is that aforementioned county map where you can kind of see the rundown on where the most breweries are, where there are not any breweries yet. There shouldn't be a big surprise here on where there are breweries and where there are not breweries. We still concentrated primarily on Milwaukee and Dane County, and then, kind of around the Milwaukee metro area, as well as up in the Green Bay part of the state. So yeah, now back to you, Chris, here. If there's, any other things that you wanted to add to any of those openings.
I have one question. Was Beloba removed from Waukesha County last month already? Is that?
Yes, I did go through and I did add that. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
so
now
they were down one only for a couple weeks.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. Good stuff. I think we've talked about this, but like, why does Fond du Lac only have one brewery, or Fond du Lac County have like one brewery? That is the weirdest dead spot in that map, doesn't it? It really mostly tracks population density, and then right there, it's like,
well, and all they're kind of along that Lake Winnebago corridor. You figure Appleton, Neenah, and Oshkosh all have multiple breweries in all of those places. So it's an interesting. And even in the areas now between, because there used to be a little more dead space between Appleton and Green Bay, but even that's starting to get filled in more. So you would think that Fond du Lac would have something, we'll see. But yeah, at this point, other than that, it's mostly all up in more of the rural, Northwoods area, where folks are a little more spread out, which it's still, honestly, when I was up there in the Northwoods last summer, there are times where I go visiting a brewery where you're surprised that a brewery exists in some of those places, like in Manitowish Waters, some Nerve Brewing way up there, and I know that there's other breweries like that are super remote, and it's just, it's really interesting how they've been able to build a base and, be around for quite a while.
Great. And that is Badger Beer Hour News for March. All right. Well, it's been a while since we've had quite this kind of this caliber of guest on Badger Beer Hour, because we have not a president, but a double president. We've got Will Glass here today. He is the president of the Wisocnsin Brewers Guild, which is why we wanted. Oh, look at him! He thinks that was a good one, huh? Will?
I wasn't sure who you were talking about.
We've got he's president of the Wisocnsin Brewers Guild, which is I guess a trade organization for independent Wisconsin breweries, and he's also president and founder of the Brewing Projekt in Eau Claire. Will, welcome to the Badger Beer Hour.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry it took so long to get here.
Oh, no problem. So, I asked you to. I wanted to have you on because you were representing the state's brewers during the negotiations for what became, I believe it's called. Are they calling it Act 268? Is that like the nomenclature for it?
I'll be honest. After we counted noses in the Senate and they got a final vote, I tuned out. It passed.
All right. So this law that this law that was passed last. I think Evers signed it last in early December, and it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is basically the biggest overhaul of Wisconsin's laws regulating alcohol that we've seen in like a generation. Is that fair to say?
Since the repeal of Prohibition, really.
Okay. Multiple generations then.
Yeah, it's man. This is the kind of thing I could talk for hours and hours and hours about, and regretfully, unfortunately, have. But yeah, there really hasn't been a good thing that has happened for the beer industry since the repeal of Prohibition. Our businesses have only lost rights and only lost abilities really since then. And this was a pretty big step towards making a much, I'll say, more equitable system for I think all of the tiers. I really hate that phrase, but
right.
That's what they call
okay.
it.
So can you kind of, like this was a big one. So what were kind of the biggest changes for brewers in this law?
Oh man, well, I think that's a matter of context, honestly, because there are so many different things that happened in this bill that allowed people to even own a business. Goes back to like my story, but it allows people to grow a business. It allows people to bring back business that they didn't used to have. It clarifies things. So depending on what type of a brewery you are or what type of business model you have, it is such a, I mean, it does so much. It really does. It's far from perfect. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I kind of had to get over, was this idea that, perfection is the enemy of good, and we were never going to get to perfect. I worked on this for almost 8 years in total. And after, I think, the 4th year, I started thinking, yeah, we're either not going to get anything ever, or we're going to have to make some compromises. And that's where we ended up. But I mean, some of the big highlights are the restoration of what will basically be like full service bar in a lot of breweries, codifying existing trade practice that has been deemed illegal just in the last year or so. Things that are threatening to shut down small businesses and big businesses. Interest restrictions, the ability for a brewer to rent a brewery space from a landlord who maybe owns a grocery store, which was a common one that I heard a lot of, especially in central Wisconsin.
Okay.
It's just there, man. There's so much in there, and there's a lot to it, but it's pretty awesome.
So, full disclosure or not full, just kind of looping the audience into what we already know, is I actually reached out to you earlier this year to kind of come on and talk about how the implementation of this law is going. But it's not quite that simple, right? Like what's happening with this right now, and let's go there first. How is this kind of, is it in force now?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I mean, one of the biggest things that needed to happen was what is now the creation of the Division of Alcohol Enforcement for the state of Wisconsin. So it's going to be a new subset of the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. Yeah, Department of Revenue. Gosh, in my mind, I was saying Department of Natural Resources, and Revenue came out. I guess 2 beers in, that's what's just going to happen.
It's Badger Beer our way.
Yeah, right. So they have to basically create that agency, and then they have to create the rules that agency is going to operate by. And this was one of the very enlightening things over the years that I learned by working through our attorneys and working with legislators, working with people inside the Dome in Madison, was this idea that you can't make a law that covers every instance that's ever going to come up. There's going to be rulemaking, there's going to be ambiguity, there's going to be subjectivity. But first step is that they have to actually create that office, and then they have to appoint somebody to run it. And last I heard, that person still doesn't exist. And we're a month and a half-ish away from most of this taking effect. And, that's just kind of how bureaucracy works, I guess. It's a process that's going to take Senate confirmation for the head of this thing. And there isn't a name yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the Senate's like done with, they're like peace outed. So, I mean, does that mean that the bureaucratic portion of it can go without the politically approved head, or?
Yeah, and they can appoint an interim, and there is somebody who's kind of starting that transitionary role right now. There was a technicality type meeting for promulgation about a month ago, and it was like, man, is this what government does when we're not looking? It was a bunch of people sitting on a Zoom meeting waiting for somebody to talk, and it was over in like 20 minutes. There was literally no word said for about 10 minutes. It was really weird.
Wow.
Yeah, as of right now, I know that there's a bit of angst because a lot of municipalities are kind of in limbo. The way that the laws have been in Wisconsin for so long have been very difficult to read. And if you talk to any municipality, they'll say that sometimes they're getting different answers depending on who they talk to, if they call Madison or if they talk to their local enforcement guy. And to be very honest, it's not really their fault, because the laws were so hard to read. You could get 2 very reasonable and very intelligent people to read this same, chunk of statute and come out of it with 2 and 3 and 4 different opinions. So a few years ago, I was a member of a legislative study committee and I sat next to the man who was the attorney for the municipal attorneys for the state of Wisconsin. And it was really interesting to hear his take on this. And all he wanted was consistency. But when you look at statute, there isn't any. Or we should say, when we looked at the previous statute, there was a whole lot less. So yeah, there's going to have to be rules made. There are going to have to be forms made. Municipalities are going to have to be educated. Breweries, wineries, distilleries, wholesalers, retailers are all going to have to be, get some re-education during this process as well. But I expect it's just like anything else. Implementation and change is hard. So it's going to be challenging. I'll say that our work is not done yet, especially as Wisconsin Brewers Guild, to make sure that the promulgation process follows really what the intent of the statutes were. But it's exciting. Honestly, I think that one of the you were talking about at the beginning of the news about these places that are opening up additional retail locations. These changes were some of the changes that are going to help facilitate a lot more of that type of growth. And some of these guys, I'll say I know about these upcoming law changes and what's going to come to them as a result. So it's going to make a lot of these new, tap room split offs much more feasible, or not feasible necessarily, but financially feasible, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, like some of it is just certainty that they're not going to be able to lose, that they wouldn't open that and then lose it, right? Like because of the way the existing law was read, or the previous law, I guess, was read.
And I guess that in addition to the other two presidencies, I'm also the president of the Wisconsin Craft Beverage Coalition. So I get to represent the wineries and distilleries in this as well.
Right.
And there was such crazy shit happening, like Woolersheim literally being told they had to close down a location that they had operated for decades. Out of the blue. Distilleries being told, hey, you've got that location there. Well, this one's illegal. You granted us that permit 10 years ago. It's that kind of crazy stuff that, like, how are you supposed to operate a business or even expand a business if you think they can do it, you can do it, right?
Right.
So we're the interpretation. So, there's going to be a lot that comes to this, and to your point, clarity is a huge, huge one. To be honest, there were things that we were able to kind of operate almost in the gray of ambiguity that were very beneficial. But any reasonable person could very clearly read some of those statutes and say that's definitely not what that means.
What? Give me an example of one of those.
I'll give you a really good example. Yeah. The big one is this idea of the current offsite retail location. So the way that's been utilized, and I'll say especially down in your corner of the state now, or not now, over the last handful of years, that was 100% not the intent of what that law was supposed to be. The intent of that law goes that was sort of a contract brand that they had split off, and that contract brand wanted to have a second retail location, and they got a brewer's permit to be able to do that. Well, when the laws changed, I think it was 2008 when they started limiting what a brew pub and a brewery could be, and then they created the whole concept of a recipe brewer's permit, they were going to have to close down that offsite retail location. So they granted that offsite retail location to any production facility. If you actually read the statute verbatim, it quite literally says or, and it was interpreted as and or, meaning that you would have two locations as opposed to only one. So it was a very generous interpretation that has been taken advantage of.
And I mean, those licenses are what we're talking about with Venture, with even like with the beer gardens that, like that's a big one down here is, a brewery opening up or having a beer garden in a county park or something like that.
100%.
Yeah.
And that stuff, I mean, again, like any absolutely reasonable person can read that the way that statute was written. And if you had a yes or no, does this say that it allows two locations? The answer is no.
Okay.
But somewhere along the line, that interpretation that was created basically for that sort of quasi-contract recipe brewer's permit became that second retail location. And as it continued to kind of proliferate through the market, it turned into this thing, well, now we would have to tell like 20 or 30 businesses that they're going to have to close their secondary location. And DOR kind of took this like, yeah, let's just stick with that interpretation. But it's the kind of thing where, again, going back to the Wollersheim being told to close a second location, like if they can decide that, like this on a whim with a business that's been operating for decades and has a name like that, who's to say that wasn't going to happen?
All it would take would be a lawsuit, right? Probably.
Not even
having a judge look at that statute and say
it would take the head of the current Department of Enforcement to just say, yeah, I don't like that anymore, and then it's done. I mean, that's basically what happened.
Right. So
sorry,
okay, so
dog is jumping on my laptop here. I gotta get buddy. Go.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Well, it's better than the kids, I guess.
Pounds, so yeah. Here, get his big dumb face.
Oh, what a good boy. Okay, so one of the kind of the functions that you have as Brewers Guild president, I imagine, especially in times like these, is people are coming, and you're given your involvement in shaping this law. I imagine you're hearing tons of questions from your constituents, brewers, and like as you mentioned, the entire craft was it craft producers?
Craft Beverage Coalition.
Coalition. Okay, so you got
the Wineries Association, the Distillers Guild, and the Brewers Guild.
Okay, so I mean, I imagine that you have all these businesses asking you, like, hey, what is this going to look like? What are you hearing from the producers about how what they're thinking about might pertain to them with this law? Like kind of look forward a little bit. Like what is the stuff that you're hearing the most often?
There are two things that I hear the most. One of them I'm not surprised about. The other one I'm sort of surprised is as big of a deal that it's been. I'll say that the one that surprised me was the number of brewers looking for storage space or looking to move locations that aren't able to get a warehouse or aren't able to get a secondary retail location potentially because that landlord has a financial interest in another area in the street. That was one that I had heard about prior to this law, and it was mostly having to do with storage. It was like, okay, the grocery store, the guy that owns the grocery store owns the mini storage. And then when you try to license that as your secondary or as a beer warehouse, the Department of Revenue would say, no, you can't do that because, well, that landlord might have an impact over your business decisions because you're both in the alcohol industry. Like that's how ridiculous it was. But now that as long as those relationships are disclosed, they're going to be allowed. And I will say that that leads into the second one, or the biggest one that I hear about is that additional retail locations. The industry has changed a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think that a lot of brewers are looking at where their business is in general and thinking, how do I sell as much product as possible over my bar? And one of the easiest ways to do that is through that secondary location. Mm-hmm. So now they have the ability to go and maybe, how many closed down convenience stores are there around, even gas stations? Like there are guys who are looking at opening up their secondary locations that have a big beer garden that used to be out, where a gas pad was. Like they have the ability to lease those locations, and now they have the ability to go and operate these offsite retail locations and have or be eligible to do wine and spirits in those locations as well. So, if what we're seeing is our members trying to get product to market, we could have either done direct to consumer, which is direct ship. And I'll tell you that the appetite for that was nil across the state. The only people interested in it were small breweries. Every other interest group was going to say no. So then it turned into, okay, well, how do we get ourselves back to a position that we were pre-2011, where we had the ability to open additional retail locations, where we had the ability to access more consumers, and not only access more consumers, but entice more to come in our front door. There's that kind of saying for tap rooms where you get a group of 6 people in, and 5 of them want to drink the beer that you make in the building. 1 of them wants a Busch Light, and 2 of them want wine. As of today, you can't do 3 of those people aren't going to be happy. So now our breweries are going to be able to cater to those events. A lot of breweries are, again, when you were talking about the news, like they're opening locations that are going to be able to facilitate special events, meetings, weddings, stuff like that. And now, grandma's going to be able to get a glass of wine. You're going to be eligible to have signature cocktails. If
Hmm.
Uncle Joe wants a frickin' Jack and Coke, he can get a Jack and Coke if he wants. So it's going to allow our guys to really continue to promote that retail direct to consumer, where their margins are the highest, and where it's really going to help them survive. So
Oh, oh yeah.
fancy.
The peanut gallery is chiming in here. Well, Will, you kind of alluded to this, but and we obviously some pretty somber news coming in the news segment coming into this interview. It's tough out there right now. What are you hearing from specifically Brewers Guild members about that? Just kind of everything.
What I'm hearing is that it's a tough market, and that it's growth has become harder and harder. I think that if you look at distribution in general, there are a lot of out-of-state breweries coming in, and they're coming in because they're having to, there's that old thing where it's like you go an inch wide and a mile deep in distribution, or you go a mile wide and an inch deep. And a lot of breweries have already gone that inch deep and a mile wide, but they built themselves up for the capacity to go a mile wide and a mile deep. And now they're suddenly going, oh shit, we better start spreading this out. And shelf space is limited. There's only so much space in a store. And THC beverages, as THC beverages continue to come up, what are they going to be taking the shelf space of? You're not going to see Festival and Woodman's blowing out walls to put in a THC section. They're going to start taking it away from beer. Obviously, we hope that it's not independently brewed craft beer, but that's just kind of the reality of where we're at. Shelf space is getting tighter. RTDs, I've heard seltzers are going back down, but depending on where you're at, some of them are staying up. So it's a weird market. I hear a lot about diversification. Again, THC beverages. It's interesting. It's a weird place to be, and I honestly I don't think it's going to get much more comfortable, especially for breweries that think distribution is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're going to see a lot more focus on retail, and that's really, I think, how a lot of people are going to survive.
And I mean that ties into what just happened with this law, right? I mean, like that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, like I said, I personally worked on that legislation hands-on for damn near 8 years. I had been working for the 2 years prior to that kind of on my own. But these things that we just got done are not things that I thought were going to be as beneficial then as they are, which I think is great. We kind of sat down, we did our first poll of members, figure out what are your legislative priorities, where is the low-hanging fruit, what should we go after, how can we get a win? And we thought, like, 2 or 3 years we'll be able to get this done. And shit, was I wrong? Were we all wrong? But that it was never really in our mind that this retail component was going to end up being as important, I think, as it's going to become. So it was a lot of work to get the things that we got, and I don't want to say that it's serendipitous, because we all wish that we were in a better position as an industry, but it feels like things are getting tighter and tighter every day. All of our costs have gone up, that's for sure. And most people aren't real happy when they see their 4-pack or 6-pack go a couple bucks on the shelf. So a lot of us, and I'll say me included, we've held off on price increases as much as possible, and that makes it harder to stay alive. So yeah.
Well, let me ask you to take off. I don't know. Presidents don't have like crowns, but they have maybe the sash. Do they have sashes sometimes?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you take off the Brewers Guild sash and slip on the comfortable Brewing Projekt sash and tell us what's going on at the Brewing Projekt? What's happening in Eau Claire?
Oh man, what's happening at the Brewing Projekt? We're investing in retail. We built out our big building in 2019, only to have it basically shuttered for the first year.
Yeah.
But we're excited to be getting wine and spirits in. Honestly, we've been able to do wine and spirits for the last 2 years because we're also a winery and a distillery. People don't know that, and we don't tell people that, but we are. And it's been really great. But we're going to continue to look at how do we get people in the door. How do we continue to continue to grow our kind of community engagement. I mean, we've got everything from teachers groups meeting on a weekly basis to plant markets and like all this other stuff. And how can we just take advantage of the assets that we have of this really cool location downtown Eau Claire on the river, especially when out anytime it's like a nice spring day and there's like 40 or 50 people out on the patio and t-shirts when it's even 40 degrees out, and it's classic Wisconsin spring, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we really want to grow that. I used to be of the opinion that I wanted to be like a 10,000 barrel brewery, and we'll be there, but we're also doing it through contract production at this point. I had a couple of friends reach out over the last few years, and we've been making beer for them. And man, I'm not gonna lie, if we could make more beer of other people's, that'd be fine, because then I don't have to worry about selling it. It's a lot less stressful. It's not dealing with wholesalers trying to shake down IOUs and money owed. I know you were talking about Fair State right up front. I was dealing with a wholesaler in a state where they were also with that same wholesaler, and I had to take them or threaten a lawsuit over about $100,000 that was more than a year past due. And I know for a fact that they were in a similar boat and probably are in a similar boat still. So this is that thing where distribution across the country has just become tight, and a lot of wholesalers aren't up to terms, and it's making business tight across the board. So again, if I could go back to just like the Brewing Projekt hat and make a whole lot of beer for other people who would then have to deal with wholesalers, man, that'd be heaven.
You kind of mentioned the retail aspect as one of the am I getting cut off? Okay, we'll make this quick. Greg's I mean, it's been good, but okay, one quick question. You mentioned retail as being a really a pathway to success or stability, at least in the industry right now. You were at the table at the negotiating table for a long time with members of that tier, specifically the Tavern League and the grocers, so, and I guess I'm thinking about the Tavern League here because they are probably most directly affected by these extra retail locations. I mean, in a lot of these, we've talked a lot about these kind of small, breweries in small towns that are really functioning as gathering places and points of community pride, functions that had kind of been, occupied by the corner bar. And in many ways, they are similar to corner bars right now. Mm-hmm. What's the, what can you tell us about that dynamic and how, because they haven't really, Tavern League doesn't really say a whole lot about anything, but they haven't really said a whole lot about this bill either. So I'm kind of curious what you can say about any of that.
Oh, wow.
And I understand that negotiations are happening in private for a reason, but I did want to ask a question because I think yeah.
I will say that what should
I'll save the hardest question for last, Will.
Yeah, right. I will say this, that I think that you're right about the gathering place component of our industry and where things have gone. It's despite being a very old industry, a newer industry. But one of the things that we did, and I think that it was one of the things that we were able to convince a lot of, I'll say, legislators and members of the industry that weren't in the production tier, was that if the things that we're asking for, that we're looking to get out of this bill happen, and every single brewery in the state maxes out, I mean, not just craft ones, but every brewery. If every one of them maxes out on their locations and their ability to operate as full retail and in direct competition with the taverns and bars and restaurants, it would still constitute less than 3% of the total liquor licenses and on-premise sales in the state of Wisconsin. So, pretty reasonable, really, then, what we're asking for. And we had that conversation with some of the big decision makers in the legislature. And when we said that, it kind of disarmed this idea that this is going to be apocalyptic for some of the other members of retail. I will say that, as with all good things that happen at political fundraisers that happen on golf courses, we had the opportunity to break bread and have a drink with some of the executives from the Tavern League, and it was the biggest breakthrough that we had in years. And the biggest thing that happened, and the reason why it happened, was there weren't any lobbyists involved. There weren't any attorneys there. It just happened that their cart was ahead of ours. And damned if we didn't start talking, and damned if we didn't start laughing, and damned if, this wasn't all after having a few beers. And it allows us to create a relationship. And I think that, we've been demonized, they've been demonized. It's that thing where if you guys never sit down, it's hard to know what the other person is. And I tried to foster, I think, a decent relationship with the leadership of that organization, and was very honest. And I gave my opinion, whether some people liked it or not. I'll say even one of my counterparts on the wholesale side, I called him out of the blue when I thought his lobbyist was being skivy, and the tone of the conversation changed within 24 hours. There's this thing where I think the benefit that we have as the Brewers Guild is that we don't have the money to be as professionally represented. We do have professional representation. We do. We have great lobbyists, but we don't have, an executive director making six figures. We don't have a communications team. We don't have a PAC fund that's got hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. We had to go to those meetings ourselves. And I'll say, by ourselves, I'll also mention very specifically Evan Hughes from Central Standard, Ryan Kralwitz from Vines and Threshes Winery. The three of us went to a lot of fundraisers. We talked to a lot of legislators, and we were able to educate and bring up that idea that even if all of these businesses take full advantage of what happens, is it really a threat? No. And what it is, and this is where, depending on who you talk to, is a really good thing, but it's a free market opportunity. It gives us the ability to compete. And if you want, and we had this argument at one point, but if a mom and pop tavern wants to be able to compete with me on a beer that I can sell for $5 that it costs me like a nickel or a dime to make, all you got to do is spend like $3 or $4 million, and if that's your goal, like, that's all you got to do, and nobody's stopping you.
Piece of cake, right?
So yeah, like, come and compete. Like, let's let this be a free exchange of ideas and goods, and just have a free marketplace. And it's going to work out. It's going to work out for us for sure. And I think anybody else who chooses to compete is going to have the opportunity to succeed. And I think that's what it's all about.
Awesome. Well, thanks for answering that question very, very eloquently and tactfully, I think, as well. So
Yeah.
we're out of time. We're staring at Badger Beer hour and a half here, easy. Probably Badger Beer 2 hours. So thanks for coming on the show, and best of luck going forward. And we'll stay in touch about implementation and how that's all going. Maybe we'll circle back next year. Okay.
Cheers. You bet.
All right.
Hey everyone, I am back to do another edition of Badger Beer Travels. If you remember, this is a new segment that we just started doing last month, where I go and highlight a beer scene in kind of one of the lesser known, usually going to be a little bit smaller cities or towns around the great state of Wisconsin. I'm sure we will also dive into specific neighborhoods in Madison and Milwaukee, etc. But after doing Oshkosh last month, this month we are going to Burlington, Wisconsin. And for those not familiar, it's a little southwest of Milwaukee, not too far of a drive from those folks that live here. And there are actually two breweries, as you can tell here by the logo. Burlington has a population of about 11,000, part of Racine County, as I kind of hinted at. And I forgot that I actually put on here the actual distance. So it's not only southwest of Milwaukee, you can see that it is about 44 minutes southwest of Milwaukee and less than an hour and a half from Madison. One thing we're going to try to highlight here is, there's a few other things to do. There's an RC car hobby track there, as well as a Logic Puzzle Museum. And apparently Fred's World's Best Burgers is there. Apparently that's a big deal. And they are actually located right between the two breweries that we are about to discuss. And a little fun fact, you can see up there at the top that Burlington is apparently known as the Chocolate City. And that is because of the Nestle factory that was there for I don't know how many years. But so I guess that's apparently a thing. I was not aware of that before doing the research for this. But first of the two breweries that we will be discussing is the Runaway Micropub and Nano Brewery. So this spot opened in June of 2020. And interestingly, the building actually dates all the way back to 1890. And although it had many lives, the owners actually already had the building and were using it as their property management business before deciding to change it into a brewery. It's right downtown, so it's an old storefront, one that you would typically see in many downtowns around Wisconsin and other parts of the country as well. One of the fun facts that I learned when I visited there was that it's actually named. The name comes from, way back when the town was kind of first established. There was a lot of people traveling by horse and buggy. And when one of the horses would eventually, break away, because that kind of stuff happens, it was called a runaway. And that's what it was referred to in the newspapers. And so they decided to run with that. That's why you can see, there's a horse as the logo. They do also have a food menu there, which is something that is different between the two breweries that we'll be discussing. You can go onto their website. I know that it says apparently that it changes a little bit here and there, but it includes, different sandwiches, paninis. They have hot chili, mac and cheese, pot pies. So a nice little variety if you're looking for a bite to eat along with your beer, and some examples of their beer. So in a lot of these small places, you will often see, a lot of turnover, a lot of changes. But in this case, when I went through and actually looked at their current tap list, because I actually visited them late 2020, so not too long after they opened, and several of the beers that I had are actually on tap right now. My personal favorite was the Schwartz beer, the dark German lager, and it was absolutely delicious, very, very well done. And that is currently on tap as well if you want to go there. The milk can stout was another one that I had during my visit that you can get there. And some of the other beers that are kind of highlighted on the menu are the Back to Basics Blonde Ale, if you're looking for something a little bit lighter. They also had a Friars Retreat, a Belgian quad, which is not a beer that you see at every brewery, as well as, of course, every brewery, well, almost every brewery has to have a New England Hazy IPA, and they do have that as well, called Foghorn. So Burlington has, as I mentioned, two breweries, and a short walk from the Runaway is Low Daily. And Low Daily opened only a few months after the Runaway, which is kind of interesting when you consider a town the size of Burlington going from having no breweries to two breweries within the span of just a couple months in the middle of the pandemic, no less. And this building was actually built in 1926 by Milwaukee Electric Rail Light Company as a train station. And then what it actually was better known for, though, locally in many ways because of the life that it lived, was the home of Burlington Standard Press. And now, though, it is home to a brewery. And this has got the more typical feel, I would say, of the two, of a more typical tap room location. The Runaway has a more intimate feeling, more brew pubish kind of setting, where this is more open, modern feeling. And then if you go through and actually walk through the brewery to their large back patio, it is on the Fox River. And although a lot of it is covered with greenery, you can actually see part of the river if you stand in the right place. They do also make several different seltzers as well as a sparkling hop water. I forget, I counted, there was at least 5 or 6 different seltzers, I believe, when I checked. Most of them were just in cans, but they do have it on their tap list that they do have a spot for seltzers on tap as well. They do not offer the same amount of food as a place like the Runaway, but they do have snacks. But I really enjoyed the beer here. And in this case, they had, some of the lighter stuff, Country Casual Golden Ale, the Format Pilsner, as well as I know they had several IPAs such as the Cowboy. And then they did have a couple different fruited sours as well. One of which, Lounge Hours, is one that I had when I visited back in 2020, which shows that it obviously it was obviously liked when they made it the first time. The fruited sour with orange, mango, and tangerine. If they've brought it back, I don't know exactly how many times, but it is back now. I know Cowboy, I should have mentioned, is also considered to be one of the more flagships, the hazy IPA. And then they also had 2 different stouts, one that was just referred to as an Imperial Stout that was called Double Just. And then they have the same beer, Double Just Barrel, which is the exact same stout, but it is barrel aged. And then one little kind of fun story that I learned about Low Daily from my visit that I went back through my notes for was that Tim Sullivan is a Burlington native, the guy behind Low Daily. And he actually worked at both Carl Strauss in San Diego and Ecliptic in Portland, Oregon, which are 2, fairly big names out there on the West Coast when it comes to beer. And the name seems maybe like a little bit random. And the story isn't going to dispel that notion as all, because he actually came up with the name Low Daily. He and some friends were sitting on a rooftop in LA drinking beers. And apparently they were talking about, brewery and brewing stuff. And there was an old hotel across the street with a faded sign that said low daily and weekly rates. And he said that if I was ever going to open a brewery, it was going to be called Low Daily. And here he is. And if you're looking at the screen there, you can kind of see some pictures of, the patio, the interior, some of the can labels that they're currently offering at the tap room. And they're in kind of the middle. The black and white photo is from the building back when it was a train station. And so just to kind of put it into perspective, when I say they're close, I really mean they're close. This was kind of a similar format what we used last month, and I threw it together again just to kind of show where the breweries are. And you're literally talking like maybe a 3-minute walk, 2 blocks away. I know that there's other restaurants and little stores and whatnot there in downtown Burlington, right close to the river, that you can make a little nice afternoon out of it. But they really are a stone's throw apart. Not often that you have breweries that close together. So it's kind of nice that if you are visiting Burlington, you're able to, kind of double dip and compare and contrast. But yeah, I think that's a nice little visit. Like I said, it's fairly close-ish to the 2 most major metro areas, but all of southern Wisconsin is within a decent drive of Burlington. And I personally really enjoyed the beers that I had at both breweries. I'd like to get back at some point, or at least get to try more of their beers. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up here, and I'll be looking forward to seeing where we head next month.
Well, hi there. Welcome to the Beer Spotlight. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about this little guy. Dive Beer. This is a new beer from Lakefront. It came out, I believe, last month, maybe January. And look at this guy. I've been drinking a lot of beers that look like this lately. And as you may be able to tell from the name, Dive Beer, it's an American lager. We've been seeing a lot of breweries come out with these lately. This one replaces Lakefront had Lakefront Lager a few years ago. Remember that one with the blue and white striped can? Very nice. Really like that beer. And this one's a little bit different. It's interesting. Like, I feel like some of these entries are going for kind of the light lager thing, and some of them are going for like Bud heavy kind of approach. And when I had my first sip of this beer, it made me think of it is not a I don't know. I think of kind of the archetype of this beer in the craft sense in Wisconsin, at least, is like New Glarus is Totally Naked, super pale lager. This guy, I'm thinking like, okay, does this taste like Pabst or Schlitz? Like it is definitely in the macro old school vein. A little bit more body than you might expect from like a pale lager. I guess it doesn't say, it just says Milwaukee lager, and maybe that's kind of a nod to those the beers of Milwaukee's beers of old. I kind of settled on, I don't know, Schlitz. Schlitz feels a little bit softer to me these days. I don't know, who knows what it was like back in the day. I kind of settled on PBR as kind of the comp for this. It's a little bit more robust in flavor. It's got a little bit of sharpness. Definitely that kind of like old school, like there's a hop presence there that's, a little bit of snap, some sweetness. I'm guessing there's some adjunct in here. But it's only 4.2% alcohol, which puts it in, the Miller Lite vein more than the Bud Heavy vein. But I don't know, this beer drinks like a little bit more like I don't know, I guess a PBR. That's kind of the comp for it. It's sold, I don't know, I think they're only doing cans of it now. We know that Lakefront replaced their bottling line and are doing full cans now. I think they are still doing some bottles, but I'm not sure what the deal is there. But comes in 15 packs, not even a 12 pack. I'm guessing at the same price point as their 12 pack cans. So nice beer. I could see myself drinking a lot of this in the summer, although it will be a competitive summer for my gut space, because we've got New Glarus Pilsner coming out, joining the year-round lineup next. I think that's in May, and then we have Kid Kolsch came back for the first time in 2 years, and as probably everybody who follows me knows, that's a sweetheart of mine. Was having one of those earlier. Whoop, also in cans for the first time. So, it's a bounty of pale, easy drinking beers from Wisconsin Brewers this year. So that is Beer Spotlight. We're gonna keep it tight.
What's up, Chris?
Hey, Greg! Holy crap,
I
you
get
are
to make
here!
an appearance.
Look at this guy.
Look at me! I'm
He's
here.
like you're like the Wizard of Oz here. You're the man behind the curtain. Yeah, that's a little creepy though. I don't. You can't scare the talent, man.
You know what was real creepy is what you were saying in the chat, but we'll leave that.
That's not. See, that's rude. That's rude.
It's not for public consumption, clearly. But what is for public consumption, Chris, is our this week we have in 3 days. Oh my goodness, time goes by. It is the annual, the one and only, I think, only one in Wisconsin, Barley Wine Fest at one of my favorite breweries on this planet, Giant Jones. It's Saturday, March 23rd, 3 days. We love barley wine, and today is the greatest day of the year because we celebrated this only one beer style. Join the folks at Giant Jones as they tap over 10 different barley wines. They'll also have guest barley wines. They'll have collabs. They're open extended hours, ready to serve.
So wait a second. Are they saying 10 of their own barley wines plus other ones?
They have 10 of their own. They have 10 of their own barley wines. That's
a lot of B-Wizzle, man.
And
that's pretty hot.
And that might include like 1 or 2 collabs, but they had their hands in it, if that makes sense. And then there's guest barley wines. A little bit of a tip here. So the let's get to the hours quick. There'll be extended hours, 3-ounce tasters. You can build the flight, or you could take a full 8-ounce pour, but y'all need to chill on those 8-ounce pours of the barley wine. Seriously. Now
keep it to 2, folks. Come on.
Yeah,
We're dealing with whizzles here. Oh, look at that. Did you do that? Party in my house?
I did. Did you do that? What the hell's going on? Anyway,
I don't know.
A little bit of a tip here. Early afternoon when they first start, it's packed. Later in the evening, y'all, it kind of opens up and there's a little bit more room. I usually go early in the day and I'm like, whoa, I'm out of here, especially, after the pandemic. But y'all got to sneak in there and get you some barley wine. If you're a barley wine fan, it's malpractice. If you live in Madison and you're a barley wine fan and you don't go, because it's just amazing. They got English barley wines, American barley wines. Chris, it's just all over the place. It's really, really good. And John Jones's level of beers is pretty high. So Barley Wine Fest, y'all. This Saturday. Only barley wines on tap.
There you go.
It is insane. I think they usually have some kind of food too. They got a pizza shop right around the corner, and it's kind of walking distance to a lot of different things. So Barley Wine Fest, Chris.
You know what else is going on this Saturday?
Let's go.
Play Like a Girl. This is we talked about this last month, Women's Month. The Women's Beer and Spirits Collective has been putting on events all month. I went to a great one a couple weekends ago on Friday with our friend Maggie Skinner, friend of show, and saw all just an illuminati of Wisconsin beer folks there. And it was a silent auction type deal at Cafe Central down in Bayview in Milwaukee. It was pretty awesome. And I won a silent auction item. I got a 3 Sheeps art print with the wolf and a cool hat that I'm probably not going to wear, so maybe I'll give that away on Twitter or something. But really cool stuff. And the Sojourner Family Peace Center, and that's where. So we got to get back to this event this coming Saturday at Holy Mackerel on the south side of Milwaukee, 5401 West Layton Avenue. At 6 p.m. is this event. There's going to be raffles, arcade game competitions, beer from a few different breweries represented by the Women's Beer and Spirits Collective. I'm guessing that's going to be Rev from Maggie, Rev in Chicago, Revolution Brewing in Chicago. 3 Sheeps from Juliana, and who else we got? I bet New Glarus is going to be there. So a portion of the proceeds again goes to Sojourner Family Peace Center in which is a domestic abuse shelter and advocacy group in Milwaukee. So good stuff there.
Absolutely. Next we have, so now we're going to skip a week. So these are the events that we have for this week, y'all. So check your local listings though for your breweries near. There's probably actually real quick, we always have to mention Milwaukee Magazines has 14 beer events this week in Milwaukee from March 19th to the 21st or 24th. So y'all can check that out on Milwaukee Magazine's website. You Google it. You also
MilwaukeeMag.com. Yep.
Yes, and y'all should
bookmark that shit
now. But if y'all don't, here's your chance to bookmark it again, so you can check there. But also, so next week, Chris, we have one of the events that we've seen a bunch of times here is Sourfest, put on by Mobcraft Brewing. The tickets are now on sale for Wisconsin Wild and Sour Seasons at Mobcraft in the 6th year. Sounding like they have, sounds like Mobcraft's been there for about 6 years. So this sounds like something they've been doing every year there. They will have commemorative taster.
Great event. It's a great samples. They really go all out for this one.
All right. Unlimited samples of dozens of sour beers from a variety of Wisconsin breweries, including our favorites, 1840 Brewing, Brewer's Kitchen out of Pilot Project, got Lion's Tail, of course, Mobcraft, Oliphant, one of my favorites, Ope, pilot projects right there. Rookery, Shahale, Supermoon, one of my favorites. Sway, which is I know is a young brewery that gets a lot of great buzz up in the Door County area, and Youngblood, which is one of my favorites here in Madison. So you got Wisconsin breweries coming from all over the place to bring their sour beers. So check that out. I don't have. Y'all have to check your local listings for the price of that, or is that just you show up and you pay per, Chris? Or is that a? Do you remember?
I think that's a ticket. That's a ticketed event. So you're gonna need to buy that in advance or at the door. But go Mobcraft's website will have all that info.
Yeah, and I don't want to put a number on it, but usually they're like $50 and up at least to start. On a sampling thing like this. But y'all beer people know this. Y'all are way more savvy than Chris and I. So
okay. I mean, speak for yourself.
Definitely Chris. But
so brutal.
What? All
right.
So next week, we got one of Chris's favorites.
Yeah, this is I'm gonna do 2 in a row here, Greg. I'm gonna take this next weekend. So this is on March 30th. One of my personal favorite breweries in Milwaukee, Component. Good friend of mine is the kind of event programmer there. So I know Brad is putting on good stuff. And they're closing, so they get to have like multiple anniversaries because 2 years ago they moved into their new ground floor outdoor facing spot in the Lincoln Warehouse, where instead of where oh no, I'm gonna blank on the name. What is the name? The one up on the 3rd floor in there. Oh, that's super embarrassing. Look at me. But anyway, Torzala, yes, of course. Gosh, that's bad. Okay, so
Hispanic owned brewery.
That was good. Yeah. Good save. But so they're having their 2nd anniversary party for their new location next Saturday, March 30th. It runs from 1 to 10 p.m. and they're doing all kinds of stuff. So one of the cool things that Component does is they have semi-regular, I'd say, American Sign Language guided brewery tours. So this is part of their whole inclusive, beer for everybody kind of thing. So they have an interpreter there with the head brewer John Kowalski. From noon to 2, kind of walking through the brewery and how they make beer. They've got food truck, live music, 2 live music acts, and they'll be tapping multiple beers. So big party there. If you haven't been to Component, you should go. It's a great space, and good people too. And then also that weekend in Madison is another women's. This is kind of the grand finale to the Women's Month events from the Women's Beer and Spirits Collective. This one's in Madison. I wanted to mention this one because it's in Madison. There have been a lot of those events in the Milwaukee area because that's where most of the members are. But there have been a couple of events in Madison, and this is the one that kind of wraps up the Out Like a Lion, I guess you'd say. And this is at Dexter's Pub on the east side of Madison. It's a full and a silent auction. Meat raffles at 1 p.m. and the silent auction ends at 5. So you can get a chance to get some really cool brewery swag. I'm not sure what events or what items are going to be at this auction, but I can tell you the ones in Milwaukee were really cool. Some great brewery experiences, like really unique stuff. It always ends up being like kind of great, crazy value if you're interested in that. I mean, but these are donations that are going to what's the beneficiary? I think they do local. These events are benefiting local organizations, so I'm guessing it's a women's interest group, probably a domestic violence support Madison, and I'm not sure which organization it is. It's not on the
it's a woman's okay whatever it is,
but it's good stuff, and I really want to applaud these women for doing amazing work in putting all this stuff together, because imagine the stamina it takes to go to these kinds of events. They have there's like dozens of them. Like I think there's throughout the month, and they're at, many of them are at most of these things. Shout out to the whole team there. We know Maggie and Juliana, and but like boy, there's a lot. It takes a lot. So applause to them, and shout out for all the work that they've done this month and continuing. So
absolutely. Actually, you said you were going to take 2, but you should probably take this next one too.
Okay. All right. So Thursday, April 11th, we're jumping ahead a little bit. We've got a beer dinner. Beer dinners are back, y'all. Like, beer dinners were kind of gone for a while. I mean, pandemic is tough to do beer dinners, but man, I was at one last weekend at Pilot Projekt. These things have been popping up a lot more, especially at least in the Milwaukee area. But so, and this is not just any beer dinner. This is one led by a James Beard Award winning chef at Sanford in Milwaukee. Fantastic restaurant. Justin Abrahamian is a bit of a beer geek. He's the JBA chef and owner of Sanford, and he's been cellaring beer since he took over the restaurant in 2012. And I don't know if I would super recommend like cellaring any beer this long, but I am positive that he's not going blind into this, and he's tasted these beers and is probably going to talk about what the oxidation has done and how the flavors have evolved. And I'm imagine that these dishes are crafted specifically for these beers. So this is not just like here's a porter with a chocolate cake or something. This is like high end, extreme gourmet, like farm to fork. This is gonna be really something. So you got to call Sanford to reserve. You can check out their website for that number if you can't see it here. But it's a 6-course menu, and it's not cheap. It's $195, but you get 6 pours of these like a lot of these are aged like up to 10 years. So you're getting some pretty wild stuff here. So Sanford Beer Dinner Thursday, April 11th.
Yep, and check Chris's you can get Chris's Twitter down there. And look for it on his timeline, and you can blow up that picture and see what the menu really looks like. So we're going to get to the last 2 real quick. I got them. Newly opened Venture Brewing, which we talked about, I believe, a few times here. Their annual release of one of their favorite beers that they love to release is Donut Don. That'll be April 13th, happening at noon. You're going to have to check their website to make sure that it's happening at now, Chris, both locations. So
I believe
I'm sure it's going to be there.
That was thing is that they're planning that. I talked to Rob on Saturday, and yep, they're both happening.
Yeah, but you never know if they have anything special going on at one or the other. So just keep it tracked and remember now that they have 2. So that's fun. And then
that is a coffee cruller stout. That's a imperial stout that's barrel aged with it's a collaboration with Cranky Owls, which is just down North Avenue from the original location, and 2 blocks from my house here in Tulsa.
And last and certainly not least, because we have to wrap up here soon because I got to go get my kids from work. But last and certainly not least, and I know our guest Will Glasses appreciates this one. The Dells Rare Barrel Fair in Wisconsin Dells. It's a really, really fun time. I've been once when it was at Mount Olympus, actually. I forget how many years ago it was, but it's featuring rare and barrel-aged beers alongside classic Wisconsin beers that you know and love. If I recall correctly, there are special beers that really aren't seen almost anywhere else, or they be pulling them out of the cellar like Chris was talking about for this event. It brings Wisconsin brewers together for a springtime celebration of brewers' art, the boldest of the box, the finest of funk, and the trust of tradition. It's all on display for a craft beer novice to craft beer connoisseurs like Chris and I. This is Saturday, April 13th, the week before the next Badger Beer Hour. So that's why we're talking about it. It's a little far out, but you can get your tickets. It's $65 in advance, $80 the day of. And food and soda or 25 for designated dried fruit and soda. If I recall correctly, though, when I went, they had a really nice spread of like bar foodish kind of food. They had it was kind of bar foodish, but it wasn't just fried stuff, if that makes sense. So there was like pretzels and different kind of things that you could keep in your stomach because you're drinking these big generally high alcohol beers, especially if they're barrel. But all the favorites are there. I remember Central Waters, New Glarus. You'll be able to find something. We're really privileged here, Chris, as you already know, as far as breweries in this state, and Joel already knows because he's documented that. We have really good selection, so we don't have to go down the list. But check. You can get those information. I can get most of that information, I believe, at the Brewers Guild's website, because I believe that's who puts it on. So it's one of their events.
It's a fundraiser for Will's hand-to-hand retail lobbying effort.
Yeah, Will's hobby. Yeah. His side gig.
Yeah, right.
That's a big old side gig, isn't it? So that's
8
it.
years
If
worth.
y'all
Imagine that.
Yeah, if y'all ever have tips, if you ever have tips on events, please let's see here where I can get it up. Check out our email us events, news and tips at badgerbeer@gmail.com. If y'all ever have one, we love to hear them, and we love to be able to fit them in. So, but for now, y'all, we have to wrap up Badger Beer Hour and a half by doing this. Yo, Joel.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a new logo, rebranded.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do something.
This isn't even close to our longest episode. I mean, we've done.
Yeah,
we've had solid Badger Beer 2 hours before. So, yeah. But we're glad we're here.
Yeah,
we made it to the end. We got that bluesy riff to close us out.
All right, so Chris doesn't get to talk because he wasted enough of our time tonight. So, first of all, I'll start. So I need to show y'all this. Greg's been playing around on the interwebs, and we have a thing on Spotify now, y'all. First of all, you can get the Badger Beer Hour on Spotify. It's going to be usually available 24 hours after this stream, so you can listen to Badger Beer Hour and take it with you in case you miss it. You can get that. All you have to do is search Badger Beer Hour on Spotify, and we are there. But this here is Badger Beer Tunes, which is a curated playlist of beer songs that we put together for y'all. So most of them have beer in their name, or they're beer drinking songs, or stuff like that. So we will be adding to that. That's mostly fun, y'all. So just wanted to put that out there for y'all to grab that. I went to the opening of Minocqua Brewing in Madison. You can find that clip on YouTube. Chris and we all go to breweries, so we will be putting our videos out on our YouTube channel because they can't fit in the Badger Beer 2 hours. So you're going to have to go to YouTube to grab those. I will put the YouTube. I think actually, I'm pretty sure you can do badgerbeer.com and it'll take you right to our YouTube. But you can also go to YouTube and put in Badger Beer Hour, and you can find that bad boy there. So I don't have any beer related. I am off this week for Brothers and Booze, so I don't have any beer related things to talk about for myself. I was at Starkweather, y'all, and I was real. Starkweather here in Madison. Really, really nice curated list. I walk in, 2 IPAs, 16 beers, all kinds of different things on there. I couldn't try them all, Chris. Everything I tried was really good. They had the Irish Stout for St. Patty's Day. It was banging, big roast, light drinking, really nice. Starkweather, Madison, check that out. And if y'all fans of Minocqua is now here in Madison. A nice little tap room, really, really nice remodel next to a really, really nice beer store in Trixie's, as we all know. If y'all haven't been to Trixie's, I don't know why. But yeah, so that being said, Joel, thank you for your beer reports today this week. Is anything going on over at Brewery Travels we should know about?
Well, I just got back. Like I said, I think last month I talked about my Hawaii trip. Just got back from that pretty recently. So it's my 49th state I've been to a brewery in now. Just got to get to Alaska, and I was surprisingly impressed. Honestly, I had really good beer on 4 of the islands. I went to multiple breweries on 4 islands. It was a lot of fun. I mean, the trip itself, I mean, not even talking about the beer, was one of the best trips my family's taken. It was absolutely incredible. We had high expectations and they were exceeded. It was an amazing trip in all regards. And I got to enjoy some great beer. And I've been kind of lazy with my posting and getting caught up. So I'm still only posted actually a few of those visits. So if you go to my Twitter or my Instagram for brewery travels, you'll be able to start seeing me post more of those, because obviously I think a few of us are familiar with, like some of the big names, Kona Brewing and Maui Brewing, they just bought Modern Times, but all the other breweries pretty much almost essentially there in Hawaii are, small places that you don't ever see, because I mean, even small breweries often don't distribute much, and you sure aren't distributing if you're in the middle of the ocean. So really cool opportunity to get to try out a lot of these beers that I otherwise will probably never get the chance to experience. So that was a great trip. Otherwise, this month, I don't have too much else going on.
Okay.
I'm hoping to get down, at some point to Venture, to the location there. I'd love to get there. And maybe go visit a few others locally too here. So we'll just have to wait and see.
And that's a wonderful segue to Chris Strasner.
Right in the middle of a coughing jag. That's great.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Excuse me. Let's see. Been a busy couple of weeks. I went to a couple weeks ago. I went to the Pour Another Round Winter Outdoor Beer Festival in Green Bay. And that was a lovely event. I wasn't sure what to expect. And given the winter and the outdoorness, it was pretty great. Like good size, maybe like 20 some breweries there. And really, I haven't been to a lot of breweries in northeastern Wisconsin and northern Wisconsin. Those are kind of the areas that were pretty well represented. When I get home to Green Bay is where I'm from, but when I get home, I tend not to go to breweries all that often. So it was nice it was at Badger State, right by the stadium. And it was a nice event, well run. They had, representatives from each brewery there. Their crowds weren't huge, so you were able to talk to the people about the beer. I think there were a lot of, the brewery owner. I know I talked to Snapper Verbsky from Hillsboro was there. The guys from is it Skull? Is it on Alaska? This is not a great Skull.
Oh, a Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew on Alaska. Really just a super engaging event. Best of show was this Sundrop beer from Stubborn Brothers in Shawano. It's like a Sundrop, the soda, has roots in Shawano, and they had a radler, like a citrus radler that was like, oh my god, it was sweet but balanced. It was the talk of the festival for sure. It's called Greg, do you have the photo? It's called
no, but there'll be a video out on YouTube.
Okay,
real fast on this one.
Great.
I'm gonna absolutely do that tonight or tomorrow. Check our YouTube page for that. What did you do last week, real quick, Chris?
Last week was the beer dinner at Pilot Projekt, which was lovely. It was called Battle of the Bites, and they had 6 different chefs from Milwaukee and Chicago preparing small plates that people voted on for like the winner, and it was all really high end and wonderful. 5 beers included, 5 full pours from the bar included with the ticket, and
that'll get you going.
That's an Uber there and back. So
yeah.
Beer dinners are back, and then
beer dinners are back. That's kind of all I got. I don't know. We got the usual.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Oh, it's not.
You were here.
Oh yeah, we went to Venture. Yeah, mentioned that briefly. This is the new. Well, I mean, it's not really all that different. not all that different from Beloba. Kind of a funny layout. There's like this one corridor here. The bar is basically like if you're looking this way behind. The street is out on the left, and then around there's Rob. There's Rob. Rob Gustafson, right by the corner of the glass there.
Co-owner of Venture Brewing. Yes.
Yep, he's co-founder, and so really nice space. Full house on Saturday, and I think they did pretty well on Sunday as well. It's coffee's not up and running yet. That'll be, I think, in the next week or two. It sounds like, as they got to upgrade stuff and get the equipment installed. But beer's flowing. They'll be open again on Saturday and Sunday. Kind of limited for now as they ramp up employment there. But congrats to Rob and Simon on Venture West, I think they're going to call it. So yeah, and they will be pouring donutons for the event. When is that? In a few weeks. So yeah, Venture Brew.
Excellent news. Excellent time. Wanted to thank you guys for all your effort that we put into every Badger Beer Hour. The next Badger Beer Hour is April 17th. Joel, any idea? Do we have a quick tease of where we'll be visiting next month?
I think we may do an entire county rather than just one individual city, and I think we may be doing and featuring a historically significant brewery that people may not realize is one of the oldest in the country. So there's a little.
I love the tease.
Yeah. So if you know, you know, and otherwise you're gonna have to come back here and find out.
Yes.
Was it mentioned in today's show?
I don't know.
Y'all put the pieces together here.
Yeah.
So real quick, I'm gonna use this time real quick to catch up on our comments. I was today years old and I found out that Also Madhouse got from close. That was a couple months ago, right, Chris?
I believe it was, yeah. That space is open, and I've already heard rumors of new things shopping.
I've heard rumors
in there. So yep.
I am not at liberty to say those rumors because it might get us in trouble. So
it's not going to get us in trouble.
Well, it might get me in trouble because I'm not supposed to say what I'm supposed to.
Fair.
I'm not supposed to say the rumor. I was told not to say it, and now y'all trying to get me in trouble, Chris. Stop it.
I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble, Greg. You're a grown-ass man. You say what you want to say.
There's always something with the straws. Y'all already know. B Steph 12 hit up New Glarus today for the new release. I didn't even hear about that, Chris.
Yep.
Real quick, what's going on there? Do you know?
It's the first R&D release of the year. Drops on a Wednesday in March, as they do. New Glarus, when it's ready, they let it rip. Yep. It's a bourbon barrel Scotch ale, so I'm assuming it's a bourbon barrel aged version of the Wee Heavy that thumbprint that came out. Was that last winter? Already?
And they don't even. Already? Yeah, and they don't even do bourbon barrels. Oh, it must be sweet.
No.
It must be sweet.
I'm thinking this is only the second one that I can remember, but I think there might have been another one. I know they did a stout a couple years ago, and then I think there might have been another stout like a few years previous, but it's not a frequent canvas that Dan paints on very often.
No, it's not. Get it while it's hot if it's still there. I'm not sure, but y'all check it out.
Oh, it'll be there. They do a lot of those. I mean, it's not going to run out on one day. Yeah.
Oh.
In fact, I'm guessing if you go to the Dell's Rare Barrel affair, they'll probably have port.
Oh, you'll be able to taste it there. Yeah. All right, y'all. Next Badger Beer Hour is April 17th, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Or I don't know. I was talking to the guys about maybe changing it to Badger Beer Report, but we'll see. well, you see the reception here. Yeah, well, y'all see the reception here. I almost got two of them, so we'll see. But all right, y'all, we're getting out of here. Another good Badger Beer Hour. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. We will see y'all next month, and I need to hit the credits, y'all, and I just can't find them. But
thanks for watching.
Here. Yes. Thank y'all. Cheers.